During my hospital stay, my parents sold my $18,000 engagement ring to pay for my brother's dream party. When I got home, Mom sneered, "Thanks to your ring, your brother finally got what he deserved." I laughed, and she demanded, "What's so funny?" Her grin disappeared when she found out the ring they sold was. The discharge nurse asked who was picking me up. I said, "My parents." That was still true at the time. An hour later, when I got dressed and walked into the waiting area, my phone buzzed. "Just take an Uber. You'll be fine." That was it. No punctuation. No apology. Just a digital shrug. So that's how I went home, slumped in the back of an Uber, still wearing a hospital bracelet, while the driver told me about his fantasy football league. I nodded at the right moments. My head throbbed. My chest ached. And all I could think was, 5 days in a hospital bed, and they couldn't give me one ride home. My fiancé Mark wasn't there either. He'd wanted to cancel his work trip, but I told him not to. It was important. Besides, my parents had promised. I thought I could trust them with one simple task. Turns out, I couldn't. When I got home, I showered, changed, and sat on the edge of the bed long enough to realize I wasn't going to rest until I had my engagement ring back. Before the surgery, my parents had insisted on holding on to it for safekeeping. That's what they called it. Safekeeping. I wanted it back. Mom opened the door before I could knock. "Emily," she said, smiling like she'd been waiting all day to deliver a punchline. Dad was in his recliner, half watching the news. He gave me a nod and turned the volume down, like this was going to be a quick visit. I didn't sit. "I came to get my engagement ring." They looked at each other. That look I'd seen my whole life. A quick flicker of agreement, like they were both reading from the same script. Mom's smile spread. "Well, thanks to your ring, your brother's finally having the time of his life. Miami. Sunshine. He deserves it." It took me a second. "What?" Dad leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "We sold it. Don't look so shocked. You'll be married soon. You'll have another ring." I felt the air go thin. "You sold my engagement ring." Mom waved her hand. "Oh, don't be dramatic. It wasn't doing you any good sitting in a box while you were in the hospital. Ryan needed this." I gripped the back of a chair. "He needed my ring? He needed a chance," she said firmly. "He's been working so hard. He finally met someone special, and this trip, it could really mean something." Dad nodded like it was obvious. "You can't put a price on opportunities like that." The room was buzzing in my ears. Mark had saved for months, every spare dollar, for that ring. "You didn't even ask me." Mom's smile tightened. "You'd have just said no. You've always been like that." A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. It startled even me. Mom's eyes narrowed. "What's so funny?" I looked from her to Dad. Their smugness had slipped, just a little, enough for me to see the edges of fear. I smiled. "Do you really want to know?" They stiffened. "You'll find out soon enough." Their faces dropped. They called me a liar, but I could see it in their eyes. They weren't sure. I didn't explain. I didn't need to. I walked out, leaving the silence behind me like smoke. I didn't drive straight home after leaving my parents' house. I just sat in the car at the end of their street, hands on the wheel, headlights off, trying to remember how to breathe. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was worse. It was steady, flat. The kind of steady that means something snapped and you don't know what the new shape is yet. I told myself it was just one more betrayal, nothing new, just another notch on a very long list. But it didn't feel like just anything. It felt like every birthday, every holiday, every car ride home where Ryan was praised and I was ignored had suddenly lined up in a row, pointed right at me like knives. You know that moment after someone hits you with something unforgivable and you can't even cry because your body hasn't caught up yet? That's where I was, and I thought, this didn't start today. This started years ago. Ryan was always the golden boy, 2 years older, which in our house might as well have been 10. He got the parties, the shiny new things, the encouragement. I got the speeches about being grateful for what you have. When he turned 10, he got a brand new bike with blue racing stripes. When I turned 10, I got a hand-me-down pink one with a bent handlebar. Mom said it built character. When Ryan wanted baseball lessons, they found the money. When I wanted art classes, I got laughed at. You? Don't be silly. Birthdays? His were events. Friends, decorations, cake bigger than the table. Mine were sheet cake at home with the family, maybe one friend if she could get a ride. Every time I noticed the difference, every time I dared point it out, I got the same line. You're imagining things. Don't be dramatic. So I stopped pointing it out. I stopped asking. Somewhere along the way, I stopped expecting. The thing about growing up like that is you half believe it. You learn to think, maybe I don't deserve nice things. Maybe I should be grateful for scraps. Even later, when I moved out, built a life, got a good job, I carried that quiet doubt with me like a shadow. And then I met Mark. Mark is not rich. He's not the guy with the corner office and a watch that costs more than rent. He's middle class, steady, hardworking. He's the kind of man who double-checks receipts and makes sure his tires are rotated on time. But he is also the first man who ever made me feel like I wasn't too much and not enough at the same time. He listens. He shows up. He makes space for me. And when he proposed with that ring, God, I almost couldn't take it. My first instinct wasn't joy. It was guilt. This looks expensive, I whispered. You shouldn't have. He took my hand, slid it onto my finger anyway. You deserve it, he said. You deserve the best. That's when I realized how starved I'd been for those words. Not because of the ring itself, but because of what it meant. Someone believed I was worthy. The ring wasn't just a diamond. It was proof that the story my parents wrote about me, the one where I was second best, wasn't true. And now, with the wedding 2 months away, that ring meant more than ever. Which is why when my parents insisted on keeping it safe while I went into the hospital, every alarm bell in my body went off. It happened so casually. I'd just told them about the surgery. I was nervous, still trying to wrap my head around it. And Mom immediately said, "What about your engagement ring? You can't wear that in the hospital. It could get lost. Let us hold on to it." Dad nodded. "We'll keep it safe." Safe. That word again. I should have said no, but here's the thing. In my family, refusing them is an invitation to war. They don't let it drop. They don't respect boundaries. And honestly, I wanted to know. I wanted to see if they'd cross the line I was pretty sure they'd cross. So I smiled and agreed. What they didn't know is that before I handed anything over, I'd already taken the real ring and hidden it at home in a place no one would ever think to look. What I gave them was a replica. I kept that secret to myself. I didn't tell Mark. I didn't tell a friend. No one. Because the truth is, I didn't just want to protect the ring. I wanted to protect the proof. Proof of what I'd always suspected. That if they were given the chance, my parents would choose Ryan over me every time. Even if it meant selling off the one thing in my life that symbolized love and commitment. So when they sat there tonight, smug, bragging about how Ryan was having the time of his life in Miami thanks to my engagement ring, I laughed. I laughed because they thought they'd won, and I laughed because I knew something they didn't. The real ring never left my side. I wish I could say that gave me peace, that knowing I outsmarted them erased the sting of their betrayal, but it didn't. The sting was still there, sharp and burning, because even though I had the ring, I still didn't have what most people take for granted. Parents who put their daughter first. Parents who didn't see me as collateral damage in their mission to make Ryan's life easier. But at least this time, I wasn't powerless. At least this time, the damage wasn't mine. And they had no idea what kind of mess they'd just walked themselves into. I wish I could tell you my parents just sat in their smug little living room forever, clinking glasses over how clever they were. But that would have been too easy. No, the first crack came a few hours after I left their house. My phone lit up around midnight, buzzing across the nightstand like it was trying to crawl away. 5 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, 1 from a number I didn't recognize but knew was them anyway. I let it ring. I wasn't in the mood to hear another lecture about how dramatic I was. By the 10th call, I gave in. Curiosity is a terrible thing. "Emily!" Mom's voice came through sharp, like she'd been pacing for hours. "What did you do?" I sat up in bed. "Good evening to you too." "Don't play games," she snapped. "They said the ring is fake." Ah, so the appraisal had landed. Dad's voice thundered in the background. "Is Mark's ring fake? Did he trick you?" I pinched the bridge of my nose. "No, the real ring is fine." "Then what is this?" Mom demanded. "What did you give us? How could you humiliate us like this?" Humiliate them. That choice of word almost made me laugh. "I gave you exactly what I meant to give you," I said. Calm, even. Deadly polite. "You chose to sell something that didn't belong to you." "You tricked us!" she cried. "That's rich," I muttered. "This isn't funny," Dad barked. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I couldn't help it. "Oh, I have a very good idea. Do you?" Silence. The kind that says yes, they do. Here's the thing about my parents. They are masters at rewriting history. Every family story is told in their favor. Every fight becomes someone else's fault. So of course they lunge straight for the blame game. "You set us up," Mom said, her voice trembling now. "Why would you do this to your own family?" I let out a dry laugh. "Set you up? You begged me to hand it over. You didn't borrow it. You took it. You sold it. That's theft. Family doesn't get you off the hook for that." "Don't twist this around," Dad growled. I pictured him in his recliner, red-faced, gripping the armrest like it was a steering wheel he couldn't control. It almost made me smile. Almost. They begged, of course. Between the accusations came the pleas. "You have to help us," Mom said. "This is serious." "It's your mess," I said. "We can't fix it without you." "You should have thought of that before selling what wasn't yours." "He needed this!" she shouted suddenly. And there it was again. Ryan, the sun they orbit around. "He needed it?" I said quietly. "More than I needed my engagement ring? More than Mark needed his sacrifice respected?" "He's your brother," she said, as if that was still supposed to mean something. I closed my eyes. "And I'm your daughter. Funny how that never counted." The silence on the other end wasn't guilt. It was shock that I'd dared say it out loud. Dad tried a different tactic. "Listen, it's done. We can't change that. But you can help us fix it." I stared at the ceiling. "You don't even hear yourselves, do you? You stole from me, lied to me, spent it, and now you want me to clean it up." "Because we're family," Mom cried. "Exactly," I said flatly. "And that's why I knew I couldn't trust you." Her breath hitched like I'd slapped her. "Good." They tried again, over and over, pleading, accusing, twisting. "You're cruel. You don't understand how serious this is. You set us up to fail. You're laughing at your own family's suffering." I listened for a while, then cut in softly. "I told you the truth. You just didn't want to hear it." They shouted back, but I didn't. I let the silence on my end do the work. Finally, I said, This is where I hang up. You can't just click. I sat there in the dark, phone buzzing in my hand as their calls kept coming. It was almost funny, in a bitter way. For once in my life, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix their mess. The weight wasn't on my shoulders anymore. It was on theirs. And I realized something. I'd always been waiting for this moment, waiting to see if they'd really prove me right. And they had. I turned my phone face down on the nightstand, lay back, and let out a breath I'd been holding for years. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was something close, and I knew this much. Their panic tonight was just the beginning. The worst was still coming. They showed up at my door 3 days later. I knew it was them before I even opened it. The knock had that frantic rhythm, like someone was trying to keep from screaming. When I opened the door, Mom's face was pale. Dad's jaw was tight. Ryan looked like he'd just come back from the world's worst hangover. "We need to talk," Mom said. I leaned on the frame. That's never been true in the history of this family, but go ahead. Dad took over. "The man we sold the ring to, he wants his money back. Right now." I didn't move. "How much?" 9,000, he said. His voice cracked on the number. 9. Half of what Mark had actually paid. They hadn't even bothered to ask what it was worth, just grabbed the first stack of cash like it was a scratch-off win. If that didn't show how little it meant to them, nothing would. Mom rushed to fill the silence. "It was all he gave us. He says if we don't return the money immediately—" She stopped, pressed her lips together. Ryan stepped forward. "They're not the kind of people you want to owe money to, Em. This could get dangerous." For a second, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly them. Steal from me, then show up at my door begging me to bail them out of danger. "And you came here," I said slowly, "to ask me for the money." Dad nodded. "Just a loan. We'll pay you back when the mortgage clears." Mom's eyes were wide. "Please, you don't understand how serious this is." I opened the screen door just far enough to lean on it. "I understand perfectly. You sold what wasn't yours. You spent the money, and now you want me to make it go away." "You don't get it," Ryan's voice cracked. "This isn't about you anymore. It's about all of us." "No," I said, calm and cold. "It's about you. It always is." Mom's face tightened. "We're your family." I held her gaze. "That hasn't meant what you think it means for a long time." I closed the door. They stayed outside for another few minutes, voices muffled, then finally left. I didn't watch them go. The next morning, my phone rang. Ryan. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. He didn't waste time. "Because of you, they had to max out every credit card. They even took payday loans to cover the $9,000. Their credit is wrecked. They can't remortgage now. They might lose the house." I took a sip of coffee. "That sounds rough." "Rough?" His voice cracked. "You ruined their lives." I laughed once, sharp. "I ruined their lives? You blew $9,000 on a weekend in Miami. Tell me again who ruined what." "That trip mattered," he snapped. "You'll never understand." "You're right," I said. "I won't." "You're unbelievable." "I finally am," I said, and hung up. The fallout came in pieces. A cousin sent me a screenshot from the family chat. A for sale sign planted in front of the house. An aunt called, her voice full of pity dressed as judgment. Mom's message in the thread. "We're moving into something more manageable." Manageable. That was one word for it. The truth was simpler. They'd borrowed so recklessly to cover the $9,000 that their credit was destroyed. The bank wouldn't give them a refinance. The only option left was to sell. And they did. 2 months later, I walked down the aisle in a dress that actually felt like mine. Mark stood waiting, steady and sure, the way he always was. The ring, my real ring, glinted on my finger as he took my hands. My parents weren't there. Neither was Ryan. Not by accident, not by oversight. I hadn't invited them. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. After the wedding, I found out they'd moved into a rental across town. Smaller, cheaper. Reputation in shreds. People kept asking if I felt guilty. I didn't. They lost their house, but I lost nothing, except people who never truly valued me, and for once, that felt like a fair trade. Fast forward a year. By then, I was 8 months pregnant. Swollen ankles, a belly that made bending over an Olympic sport, and a calendar covered in doctor appointments. Mark was nesting in his own way, assembling furniture with the seriousness of a surgeon, researching car seats like he was prepping for trial. And then the messages started again. It began with Mom, short and syrupy. "We want to see the baby when it's born. We'll be good grandparents. Let's put the past behind us." I ignored it. Then Dad. "Think about the baby. Don't punish us forever." Ignore. Then Ryan, still somehow convinced his voice carried weight. "This is bigger than you. The baby deserves family." I laughed out loud at that one. The idea of Ryan giving parenting advice was like a cat teaching swimming lessons. I stayed quiet. But relatives never can. An aunt texted me, "Why are you being so cruel? They're devastated. Everyone's saying you won't even let them see their own grandchild." Another, "They've suffered enough. Stop making everything about yourself." It snowballed. My phone filled with whispers dressed up as concern. Family group chat notifications stacked up like bricks, passive-aggressive prayers, vague lectures about forgiveness, thinly veiled attacks. I ignored them until one night I couldn't. I was exhausted, swollen, fed up, and I snapped. I typed a message into the group chat. My hands shook, but not from fear. "Since you all want to know the truth, here it is. A year ago, while I was in the hospital, my parents sold my engagement ring to pay for Ryan's Miami trip. They took $9,000 from a shady buyer, spent it, and when the appraisal came back fake, they had to max out cards and take payday loans to cover it. That's why they lost the house. That's why they're in a rental now. They didn't lose everything because of me. They did it to themselves." Send. Silence. Then the flood. Cousins swore they thought it was gossip, not fact. Aunts gasped in digital italics. "What? They did what?" Screenshots flew, emojis stacked. One cousin wrote, "I can't believe they blamed you when they stole from you." Another, "Explains a lot. Always knew Ryan was spoiled rotten." The tide turned. For once, I wasn't the dramatic one. They were. Mom tried to post a defense. Something about sacrifice for family and helping Ryan when he needed us most. But it sank instantly under the weight of everyone else's disgust. It was like watching a dam break. Years of favoritism and excuses exposed in one thread. They weren't the golden couple anymore. They were the punchline. In the months that followed, I heard the rest through whispers. The Miami girl had dumped Ryan not long after the trip, and eventually he moved back in with my parents at the rental. That's how it ended. The three of them under one roof again. No house, no reputation, and no excuses left. And me? I built something better.